Banana. What's today's flavor gonna be?
Some sort of banana, avocado, berry mix.
Oh boy.
It's good.
It is good.
You know, bananas are considered berries.
I didn't know that actually at all. Why?
I don't know. It's kind of like how palm trees are actually grass.
What?
You didn't know that?
I did not know that.
Palm trees are in the grass family.
I was unaware of that. That is weird.
It's interesting, right?
It's interesting, but it's weird.
Yeah.
Hello.
That is like, you know, they evolved from some sort of grass, like natural, whatever.
Yeah.
Evolutionary line.
Sure. It's still weird.
Yeah.
Hey Mary, how's Autumn?
Evolution? You're drunk?
I was just watching one of your store-bought slime videos and it was the cloud mesh thing. Oh, cool. Long time ago. Did you guys know that a palm tree was grass? Because I tell you what, I didn't. She got, oh, that's so awesome, Mary. Yay. Apparently. Is it really?
Yeah.
And a banana is a berry. A banana is a berry, you guys? I'm full of confusion. Full of confusion. Why is a banana a berry? Like, I don't get it.
It has a common ancestor of theirs.
I guess.
Same as the tree.
Weird. I can't wait to get this. I know! I'm gonna pack it up today, Mary. Don't worry. Don't you worry. All the slime, that's crazy, but a palm tree being grass makes more sense than a banana being a berry. I agree. Do you agree? You don't know if you agree? I agree. I think it's weird. Weird. What's everyone drinking this morning? Anybody got their coffee already? I am making our coffee right now.
Many are surprised to know that bananas are classified as berries.
Yeah, we were surprised.
Most people think of berries as small fruits that can be picked off, such as strawberries or other apples. However, botanically, these fruits are considered berries.
What? How is that possible? Hey, Brianna. Hey, Amanda. How?
The Stanford magazine article called "Bananas Are Berries"?
Yeah. Tell me more.
Read it.
We're gonna read it out loud.
True berries are simple fruits stemming from one flower with one ovary and typically have several seeds. Tomatoes fall into this group, as do pomegranates, kiwis, and blueberries and bananas.
Whoa.
Their seeds are so tiny, easy to forget they're there. Unlike their superficial similarities
Hey,
to
Becca.
stone fruits,
Hey, Amanda.
avocados might be classified as drupes. No, they're not considered. They're considered a berry too,
What's a droop?
with one giant seed. So bananas are berries and raspberries aren't. Who knew?
What are raspberries then?
No, that's about my favorite.
What? Did you guys know this? Wait. Who already knew this and who is with me in shock? Anybody? Babe, I have to descal this machine today. Do not let me leave the house until I descal this machine.
You just run it in mode.
There's a cleaner. It's yelling at me. It's got the little red line on it. It's like, clean your machine, you dolt. That's what it said to me. I have the stuff. I just have to run it through. It's honestly crazy to me. It's crazy to me, too. It's crazy.
That's science.
Science is weird, you guys. Someone call Hank Green and get him to explain this to us.
I just did explain it to you.
I don't like it.
Did you say Hank Green? I don't.
Why? What's wrong with Hank Green? He just recovered from cancer. Be nice to him.
I don't know how to answer troubles. I just don't like him as a human being.
What? Why?
Because he's annoying.
Oh.
Every single time YouTube tries to feed me his stupid videos, I'm like, no, get out of my face. I'm gonna die. Oh gosh.
They're calling for a divorce.
What?
We're not even married and we have to get divorced now.
Everybody likes this Hank Green guy? Why?
Because.
The guy with glasses.
Yes.
He's like, man, this is like the science.
That's right. That's exactly what he does. It's wonderful. He explains everything to me like I'm 5 and I need it.
Yeah, it's condescending.
It's not condescending because he knows I don't know. He's helping me.
He's being condescending.
He's not being condescending because we legitimately asked him to explain it to us like that. Where do you think the phrase came from? Explain to me like I'm 5.
Not from Hank Green.
No, but he's helping.
Good guy.
I am flabbergasted. Thank you, Jillian.
No thank
I
you,
also,
Jillian.
she said, I love your hair. Thank you, Jillian. She's not even talking about Hank Green. Calm down. I agree. I will not accept Hank Green slander in this household.
I didn't slander him, though. What
You
did
said
I
he's annoying.
Oh, just throwing out facts.
That's not a fact. Hank Green is wonderful, and I will not
Is that
hear
other
this.
guy that does the other sciencey stuff his brother?
Bill Nye the Science Guy?
No. The guy that kind of looks like Hank Green and had that. He talks about like books and shit. He's more of a
John Green.
John Green.
Yes, that is his brother.
I don't know their names.
Yeah, but he's not a science guy.
That guy's less annoying.
Well, he's not a science guy.
Well, Hank
He's
should
a
learn-
book guy.
Hank should learn from his brother how to be less annoying.
I'm sure his brother agrees with you. They fight on TikTok all the time. It's very funny.
Well, I'm team other guy. whatever
You're
his
team
name is.
John Green?
Yeah, sure, why not?
My sister calls him John Green's brother. Yeah. They're both famous, which I'm sure is a shock to their parents' system, considering that they're both super nerdy. And when you raise 2 nerdy sons, you don't expect that they're both going to be famous. Bill Nye is your favorite science guy?
Bill Nye is a hack fraud.
Really?
I mean, he's just, he doesn't have any like advanced degrees or anything.
Well, no, but he's just teaching science stuff. I don't have,
I've heard some stories about him that make me question if he's a nice fella.
Oh. All right, well, Hank
He
Green...
go to like conventions and maybe try to pick up young girls.
Uh-oh. Hank Green does not do that.
You don't know that.
I do know that. Hank Green doesn't go to conventions.
There we go.
So he's already winning. Hank Green is a wonderful person, by all accounts.
I'm sure he's fabulous.
Dishonor on you, dishonor on your cow.
No, don't do that. I'm sure he's fabulous and I'm glad he beat cancer.
Yeah,
That's something.
it's pretty impressive, right?
Probably more impressive for his doctors.
Right, but he followed the rules. Are you gonna make a smoothie?
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna dance. Are you ready?
Yeah. I will look this now. As soon as it.
louder than usual?
No, I don't think so. Maybe, I don't know.
It sounded more violent than usual.
Oh.
Guys, it's time to read so that I can go pack your orders.
Guys.
Time
to read.
Are you making fun of me?
No, I was trying to do Christopher Walken style, but I can't do it.
Oh.
Because we just watched the show with Christopher Walken.
It's true, we did. What was he doing snoring? No, he's making a smoothie. If he snores like that, we're going to the doctor.
I am your death.
Okay, chapter 8. The only objection. What's it going to be? The day of Red and Froggy's wedding finally arrived, and the newly christened Center Kingdom was in a daze of celebration. Despite the constant setbacks, Red managed to finish all the planning her perfect day required, and thanks to a great amount of self-control on Goldilocks' part, Red had lived to see it. The former Hall of Progress had been transformed into a beautiful altar. 500 chairs had been set to face the pulpit on top of a large platform. Risers were built for a 200-piece symphony. A massive organ, thank you, darling, with pipes stretching high into the ceiling had been carefully constructed. Tall vases of pink, red, and white carnations were arranged and placed throughout the hall. White pillars and rosy silk drapes lined the walls. Goldilocks had spent the entire morning helping the castle servants and putting everything together and was very proud of their work. However, when Red arrived to make her final inspections, Goldilocks discovered that her true task as matron of honor wasn't just helping the bride, but protecting everyone from the bride. Red stormed into the Hall of Progress wearing nothing but a pink bathrobe and fuzzy slippers. She had curlers in her hair and no makeup on. Her eyes were much larger than usual and a scowl was frozen on her face. She had never looked so anxious. "This is wrong! This is all wrong!" Red yelled. "The chairs are too close together. The women's dresses will get caught in them. The pulpit is too far away. I'm getting married, not making a pilgrimage. Tell all the musicians that they are not allowed to eat any of the food. The caterers only had time to prepare enough for the guests. The pillars and the drapes need to match the plate. This looks like a giant rib cage." Red didn't even look at anything long enough to properly assess it. She flung her arms around, yelling as she pointed at anything that she could. "Red, this is exactly as you planned it," Goldilocks said. "You need to calm down." "Please tell me that is not what you're wearing to the wedding," Red hollered, targeting Goldilocks next. "No, I'm wearing something much uglier that you chose for me," Goldilocks said. "Remember the pink dress with the puffy shoulders?" Red wasn't listening to a word she said. She began pacing and mumbling to herself. "Did you sleep last night?" Goldilocks asked. "Sleep? How was I supposed to sleep when there's so much to do?" Red asked. "Wait, are you saying that I look puffy? Oh my god, I look puffy! The wedding is canceled! Everyone go home!" Goldilocks removed the flowers from the nearest vase and dumped the water over Red's head to cool her off. The bride-to-be screamed. "Listen to me very carefully," Goldilocks said, and leaned threateningly close to her. "Everything in this building is exactly how you wanted it. You're just having pre-wedding jitters. There is nothing that you need to fix or adjust. What you need to do is go back to the castle and start getting ready and enjoy the day. Because if I hear one more complaint from you, this wedding will turn into your funeral. Is that clear?" Red frowned. Her jaw trembled and she nodded slowly. Yes." She turned to face the rest of the room. "My apologies, everyone. Well done. As a reward for your efforts, I'd like to invite you all to the reception at the castle following the ceremony. Just, don't eat anything." However, Red wasn't the only one feeling pre-wedding jitters. Froggy, Connor, and Jack were dressed up in nice suits and kept one another in the library of the castle while they waited for the ceremony to start. Froggy stood motionless at the window. He stared out at the kingdom and watched as the citizens lined the streets. They were bubbling with excitement and anticipation, hopeful for a glimpse of the royal wedding. "It's funny how the times change," Froggy said softly. 4 years ago, I was living in a hole, afraid that if I showed my face to the world, it would hate and fear me.
I never thought love was an option for me, and now, here I am, the elected king of a kingdom, about to marry one of the most beautiful women in the world, and, well, she's technically the one who proposed to me. Well, if there's one thing life's good at, it's surprising you, Jack said, and sometimes it surprises you in the best ways. Connor was sitting in an armchair, staring at the floor, oblivious to what they were saying. His mind was still fixated on their search for his sister and the masked man. You know what? I was just wondering that, Shelley. I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure. They need to describe it. He quickly looked up when the room went quiet. I'm sorry, what'd you say? Connor asked. He was supposed to be Froggy's best man, and so far, he was failing at it. Just an observation, nothing really important, Froggy said. He gulped and loosened his collar. Why does everyone rethink their decision to get married on the day of their wedding? I've been fine with the idea for months, but only now do I feel like I'm getting cold feet. Connor laughed. But Froggy, you're an amphibian. Your feet are always cold. There you go. That's our answer. Froggy turned to him and smiled. It was a nice way of putting things into perspective. There was a knock on the door, and the third little pig poked his head into the library. Your Majesty, the former and future queen is almost ready. The ceremony will begin shortly. Jack patted Froggy on the back. That's it. Are you ready? Ready as I'll ever be, Froggy said. Gentlemen, please join me in my last steps as a bachelor. They followed him out of the library, but Connor lingered in the doorway. A bad feeling grew in the pit of his stomach, and he looked back at the empty library. It felt as if he was forgetting something, but he couldn't figure out what it was. He didn't want to keep the others waiting, so he caught up with them, but the feeling stayed with him. Perhaps he was just having jitters of his own. Meanwhile, in Red's chambers, the bride-to-be was taking an impossibly long time putting on her wedding dress. Goldilocks tried fussing with the sleeves of her matron of honor dress as she waited, but there was only so much that she could do. However, I bet the witch from the beginning makes an entrance. I wonder if they don't have... Ah, interesting, Tiffany. Interesting. Interesting. Hurry up, Red, Goldilocks instructed. You don't want to be late to your own wedding. Perfection cannot be rushed, Red called out from the changing room. As if Red were wrestling a giant fabric monster, Goldilocks heard rustling and tussling from the changing room as Red's handmaiden struggled to get the dress on her. When the handmaiden stepped out of the changing room, her face was so flushed, she looked like she had run a marathon. What a dress, the handmaiden said. She was going to have nightmares about it for the rest of her life. Come on, Red, Goldilocks said. I'm dying to see it. The wedding dress was so massive, the front of it emerged from the changing room a few moments before Red followed behind. It was a white mountain of ruffles and lace, lined with red trim and covered in ridiculous red bows. The veil was messy and exploded from the top of Red's head like a volcano. Goldilocks was speechless, and not in a good way. Claudius leapt from his bed and barked at the dress as if it were a wild beast. Well, what do you think? Red asked with a hopeful smile. Well, you said you wanted the wedding to be a spectacle, right? Goldilocks said. Red marched across her chambers to the mirror and took a look at herself. Judging from her reaction, the dress wasn't at all what she had expected. I look like a blizzard, Red gasped. I don't understand. It looked so pretty in Granny's sketches. You didn't try it on beforehand? Goldilocks asked. I didn't have time, Red said. I was too busy helping the twins fight the masked man. Well, maybe there's a way to simplify it, Goldilocks suggested. The handmaiden hooted. Ooh, it's so tightly stitched it would take hours to alter it. She might be better off just walking down the aisle naked. Red had a massive panic attack. She walked around in circles, fanned her tears with her hands so her makeup wouldn't run. As far as she was concerned, the wedding was ruined. Maybe I can help? A familiar voice came from behind. They all turned to see Alex standing there. None of them noticed when she appeared. Claudius charged forward and pounced her, his traditional way of greeting someone he liked, but Alex waved her hand, and the wolf froze mid-air. Despite being suspended, he still managed to lick the side of her face. Alex, Goldilocks said and gave her a hug. You had all of us so worried. Thank God you're all right. Yeah, well, I've been better, Alex said. Red cleared her throat. Excuse me, she said, redirecting their attention. Alex, it is nice to see you, but I'm in the middle of a wedding crisis. I could use a fairy's touch right now. I think you need more than that, Goldilocks laughed. Could you help me or not? Red yelled. Seeing Red in such a frantic state made Alex forget her own problems, but she was hesitant to help her. I don't know if I should, Alex said. You saw what I did to the Fairy Council. My powers have a mind of their own. There's no telling what I must do. Red had never looked so desperate. I don't care if you turn me into a big ball of fire and lightning, she said. Even that would look better than this dress. All right, Alex shrugged. But I'm going to need help, Red. I can't supply the magic. You'll need to focus. Think of how you want your wedding dress to look and what you want Froggy to see as you walk down the aisle toward him. Red nodded and closed her eyes. Alex extended her hands toward her and light began swirling around the hideous dress. Red concentrated as hard as she could, thinking about the dress that she had always dreamed of getting married in. Oh, my word, Goldilocks gasped and covered her mouth. I've never seen such a gorgeous thing in my entire life, the handmaiden said. Red faced the mirror to see for herself. She went into shock because of how stunning it was. The fabric was so soft and fluffy, the dress looked like a cloud. Appropriately, a hood had replaced the veil, and it turned into a long train that flowed down Red's back and onto the floor. The whole dress twinkled like a starry sky. I think it needs one more thing, Alex said. She snapped her fingers, and rather than a traditional bouquet, a basket of flowers appeared in her hand. I look beautiful, Red whispered. For the first time that day, her eyes filled with tears of joy. Thank you so much for coming, Alex. This means the world to me. At first, Alex was planning to avoid Red's wedding altogether, not wanting to create a scene or cause any more damage. But seeing how happy Red was on her wedding day made Alex ashamed that she even thought about missing it. I just wish I could see the ceremony, Alex said, but I'll probably cause a major fuss if I step onto the altar. Oh, that shouldn't be a problem, Red said. The organ isn't real. It's like in a little secret room. I had them built just in case my friends were on the run and didn't want to be seen. Alex and Goldilocks shared a quick look. Had they heard correctly? You were planning on one of us being on the run? Goldilocks asked. Are you new? Red asked. One of us is always in trouble or running from something or someone. It's just a given in our group, so I plan to head for it. Alex and Goldilocks stared at her, amused but bewildered. We should get going, your former and future highness, the handmaiden said. Claudius whined. He was still frozen in the air. Alex waved her hand and he landed on the ground. Sorry, Claudius. You're staying in the castle until you learn the difference between children and chew toys, Red said. It's a long story, but thank goodness we have time. Red had one last look at herself in the mirror and headed for the door. The handmaiden helped Red through the doorway, making sure her dress didn't snag on anything. The dress was hard to walk in, so Goldilocks pulled Alex aside while they let Red get a head start. Have you talked to your brother? Goldilocks asked. I don't want to talk to my brother, Alex said. She was still upset that he hadn't come to her defense in the fairy palace. Well, what he has to say might surprise you, Goldilocks said. We found out some information about the masked man. Yeah, what did you find? Alex asked. Well, the potion that he stole from the fairy palace is something your grandmother invented when your father was a boy, she said. It turns any written work into a portal, whatever world it describes. Knowing what he told the witches, we think he's going to use the potion to recruit an army from a collection of books your grandmother used to own. What? Alex asked. She knew the potion must have been powerful, but she had no idea such a thing was even possible. What kind of books is he after? Yeah, well, we were hoping you would know that, she said. Can you think of anything off the top of your head? Alex thought about it as hard as she could, but the only books she remembered her grandmother having were spell books. I can't think of any, Alex said, but regardless of what books he's after, we won't be able to stop him unless we know where he is. Goldilocks nodded. Yeah, we'll find him much faster if we work together again. I know, Alex said, but after what I did to the Fairy Council, I'm afraid to be around you guys. I couldn't live myself if I lost control and hurt one of you. Goldilocks put her hand on Alex's shoulder and looked directly into her eyes. Alex, For the last 6 months, I have been at the mercy of raging hormones, she said. One minute I'm devastated, the next I'm obnoxiously happy. I'm either overly sympathetic or vengefully spiteful, and never anywhere in between. Yesterday, Jack told me I looked beautiful, and I punched him. Why are you telling me this? Alex asked. Because I know what it's like not being in control of your emotions, Goldilocks clarified. And if I can get through today without killing Red, I have no doubt that you can learn to control yourself too. Alex appreciated Goldilocks' faith. Yeah, I'll work on it. Yoo-hoo! Red sang from the hall. Come on, it's showtime! Alex and Goldilocks headed out of Red's chambers and followed the happy bride down the hallway. Are you excited, Red? Alex asked. Honestly, Red said, I never thought I could be this happy. Who would have thought marrying a frog would bring me so much joy? The wedding guests had all arrived and taken their seats. The musicians played a pleasant song as they waited, except for the organist, who couldn't figure out why the organ wasn't working. All they needed was the bride, and the wedding could begin. Froggy stood on the platform and looked quite anxious. Every second he waited made him more paranoid that Red might have second thoughts. He was afraid that at any moment Red's handmaiden would run inside and tell the room the bride had called it all off. All the royal families had come to support Froggy and Red. Froggy's brothers, King Chance, King Chase, and King Chandler gave him a thumbs up to calm his nerves. His sisters-in-law, Cinderella, Snow White, and Sleeping Beauty, all blew him kisses. Queen Rapunzel sat with her long braid piled in her lap as it tripped all the guests seated near her. The people sitting behind Empress Elvina were upset because her giant crown made of tree branches blocked their view, but they were too afraid to ask her to remove it. Red's granny and the little old woman who managed the shoe inn sat on either side of the Empress, chatting her ears off. Yeah, I've heard that elves aren't the best tailors, Granny said. You should let me come to the elf empire and give you sewing lessons. I've made all of Red's clothes ever since she was a little girl. Her wedding dress is the best one I've ever made. Well, at least I hope it is. I lost my glasses a few weeks ago. The Fairy Council was also in attendance, and Connor avoided making eye contact with them as much as possible. Unfortunately, he couldn't avoid everyone, but he wanted to. Weddings are so romantic, don't you think, Butterboy? Connor's whole body went tense at the sound of that voice. He looked up and saw Trollbella had chosen the closest seat possible to him. It reminds me of the time we almost got married. Remember that, Butterboy? It was the best 10 minutes of my life. It was a memory that Connor had tried repeatedly to forget. Yep, that rings a bell. Of course, we were so young and foolish when we weren't mature enough for marriage, Trollbella said. That was only 2 years ago, Connor reminded her. I know, feels like yesterday, right? She said. I'm so glad we didn't go through with it. We needed time apart before we make the leap. We needed to live a little and have more experiences in love. Thankfully, I got all of that out of my system with Gator. May he rest in trouble in heaven. I'm sure you feel the same way about that blonde girl. You mean Bree? Connor said. We weren't dating. I haven't even talked to her in a couple of months. Even though they hadn't spoken in a while, Connor would be lying if he said he didn't think about Bree often. In fact, Bree was the only thing he actually liked thinking about these days. Funny how the flames of love diminish so quickly, Trollbella said with a deep sigh. Luckily, I've learned the difference between flame and a fire. I didn't know it at the time, but Gator was just a flame. I'm done with flames. What I need now is a fire. She looked up at Connor and batted her big eyes. Connor's stomach started to turn. He thought they were past all of this. Well, I hope you find one, Connor said and patted her on the shoulder. Will you excuse me? Connor walked away from her as quickly as possible and joined Froggy on the platform. He wished Trollbella had never brought up Bree. If he were honest with himself, he might admit how much he missed her, but he ignored the feeling whenever it arose, afraid it would grow if he gave it any attention. Connor was glad she wasn't around, or so he told himself. He'd already exposed her to enough dangerous expeditions around Europe and a 200-year-old army. Wherever she was much better off without him. Danger seemed to follow Connor and affect anyone associated with him. Knowing that, Connor wondered if he would ever get married himself. Would it be selfish to expose someone that he loved to a life as crazy as his? Would someone willingly exchange rings with him, knowing it was a risk? Connor abruptly slapped his forehead. "The rings!" he whispered to himself. "Oh my gosh, that's what I forgot." "What's wrong?" Jack asked. "I left the rings in the library." "Do you want me to retrieve them?" "No, I know right where I left them," Connor said. "I'll be right back. I'm the worst best man ever." Connor rushed out of the House of Progress and made a mad dash for the castle. It was hard to run through the village with all the people lining the streets. The crowds began to cheer, and Red rode by in a golden carriage. "Crap," Connor said. "It's gonna start." He ran as fast as he possibly could, determined to get the rings back in time. The golden carriage had arrived at the House of Progress, and the villagers gathered at the front steps. Red and Goldilocks were escorted out of the carriage, and the people cheered at the first glimpse of her wedding dress. Hearing the crowds outside as Red arrived was the cue for the wedding to begin. The third little pig was to officiate the ceremony, so he took his place behind the pulpit. Jack stood on the steps of the platform just below Froggy, a promoted groomsman, until Connor came back. "Where did Connor go?" Froggy asked. "The bathroom," Jack said. "He'll be right back." Magically, Alex appeared in the small room inside the organ, and no one was the wiser. She was so grateful that Red had gone to such lengths. As she looked around the room, she saw the wedding was filled with people she didn't want to see, although she didn't see her brother anywhere. Goldilocks walked down the aisle and took her place across from Jack. Red appeared in the doorway in all her glory, and the room got to their feet. She moved toward the pulpit, and the doors were shut behind her. She walked so delicately, it seemed like she was floating down the aisle. Froggy felt like time stopped once he saw Red. He forgot where he was and how he'd gotten there. As far as he was concerned, she was the only thing in existence. He had never seen such a beautiful sight in his life, and his big glossy eyes became even glossier. Red had to remind herself to breathe as she walked the aisle. She couldn't believe this moment had finally come. The wedding felt absolutely perfect, and everything seemed right in the world. "You may be seated," the third little pig announced when Red reached the pulpit. He gave a little opening speech, making the guests laugh a couple of times. Red and Froggy were lost in each other's eyes and didn't hear a word of it. Jack worried more as the ceremony went on. Connor was still nowhere to be found. "What's wrong?" Goldilocks mouthed to him. "I don't have the rings," Jack mouthed back. "And now it is time for the rings," the third little pig announced to the crowd. Goldilocks turned to the organ and pointed to her fingers. "Rings," she whispered loudly, hoping that Alex would hear her. To Jack's relief, 2 sparkling rings magically appeared in his hand. He gave one to Froggy and the other to Red. They were oblivious to everything but each other and had no clue that anything was even wrong. The quick save wasn't entirely unnoticed. Esmeralda eyed the ring suspiciously. She knew that Alex must have been close by. She looked around the room, searching for where she might be hiding. "Get out of here," Goldilocks whispered at the organ. Alex wanted to stay for the entire ceremony, but she knew it was best to make a peaceful exit while she still could. She gazed at her friends one last time and quietly disappeared into thin air. "With this ring, I thee wed," Froggy said as he slipped the ring onto Red's finger. "With this ring, I thee wed," Red said, doing the same thing. "King Charlie, Charming, do you take Red Riding Hood to be your wife and queen for as long as you both shall live?" the third little pig asked. "I do," Froggy said. He was so emotional he let a ribbit slip. "And do you, Red Riding Hood, take Charlie Charming as your husband and king for as long as you both shall live?" "I do," Red said, "and even beyond that." Their hearts were overflowing with so much joy that they could have flooded the House of Progress. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. All the observing couples held each other a little tighter. "Unless there are any objections, I hereby pronounce you—" Bam! The doors burst open with a blinding flash of light. A gust of wind blew through the hall, knocking over all the vases and pillars. The guests screamed and covered their heads. A horned creature entered the hall and leisurely strolled down the aisle. As it moved closer to the platform, Froggy and Red realized it wasn't an animal, but a woman. "Forgive the intrusion, but I object," Marina said with a menacing smile. The room erupted into a wave of murmuring. No one knew who or what the woman was. "How dare you," Froggy said. "Who are you?" "You don't recognize me, Charlie?" Marina said with a playful frown. "After all we've been through together." Even though she didn't have horns herself, Red was about to charge the intruder. "Charlie, do you know this woman?" she asked. Froggy tried to remember who she might be, but couldn't recall a time when their paths had crossed. "I've never seen her before in my life." "Identify yourself, woman!" Marina cackled so loudly the hall vibrated from the echo. "Why, I'm your fiancé," she said. "Your other fiancé?" The entire room erupted in booing and hissing. They couldn't believe this woman had the nerve to barge into a wedding and proclaim such a distasteful lie. Everyone was outraged except for Froggy. He became stiff as a board and turned pale green. He knew who she was after all, but he never thought he would lay eyes on her ever again. "Marina," he said, "you've changed." The witch was delighted to see how affected he was by her transformation. "Well, it's been a very long time, yet you're exactly how I left you." Red grabbed Froggy's hand, fearing for the worst. "Charlie, what is she talking about?" Froggy was trembling as if he were seeing a ghost. It's been years since I saw her," he said. "She was my first love, but I was afraid of what my family would think if they found out I was courting a witch, so I ended it. She was convinced I ended it because of how she looked at the time, even though I swore it had nothing to do with her appearance. She cursed me to look like a frog, so it was my own face I would have to be ashamed to show them." Red felt as if she was going to be sick. The charming kings all stood at once. "Guards!" King Chance yelled. "Seize this woman! She's a criminal!" "Oh, sit down," Marina said with a flick of her finger, and each of the charmings were compelled to sit again, against their will. "You don't have proof I was the witch who did this to him. Although it does sound like me." Why did I think it was... No, the fairy godmother turned him back into a human, not into a frog. "Why are you here, Marina?" Froggy asked. "What do you want?" "Isn't it obvious?" she said. "I've decided that I want you back. I've missed you so much over these years. Why else would I so rudely interrupt your wedding?" "Over my dead body!" Red screamed, putting herself between Marina and Froggy. The witch rolled her eyes at the affectionate gesture. "Oh, that can be arranged," she said. "You have two options, Charlie. Come with me now and return to the life we started so long ago. Or choose to stay and watch me curse your bride with a fate far worse than yours. The choice is yours." The fairy council leapt to their feet at the threat. "If you even attempt to curse anyone, we will personally escort you to Pinocchio prison," Esmeralda said. "Relax. I haven't done anything illegal yet," Marina said. "It's entirely up to Charlie. So, what will it be?" The hall waited with bated breath, but Froggy didn't know what to do or say. The witch had a paralyzing effect on him. "Fine," he said with a quivering jaw. "I'll go." The room gasped. Marina laughed and clapped her hands. "What?" Red yelled. "Charlie, you can't be serious. I'm not letting you go." I have to go, darling," he said. "I won't let her harm you." Red put her hands on his face and tears spilled down her own. "Let her curse me, I don't care," she said. "There isn't a curse in the world that would be worse than living without you." "Red, she's much more powerful than she seems," he said. "This is the only way that I can protect you. She's livestock with lipstick on. I can handle it," Red cried. "I won't let her take you from me." "I'm so sorry, my love," he said with tears of his own. I have to go. I have to." Red grabbed a hold of him with all her might. Froggy kissed her forehead and forced her off of him, joining Marina in the aisle. The witch linked arms with him, and they headed to the door together. Tears were flowing out of Red's eyes like a fountain. "Esmeralda, do something!" Red said. You can't let her do this. She hasn't done anything, Esmeralda said. He's leaving of his own free will. Then someone do something, Red hysterically cried. Please, I'm begging you all, please, someone stop him. Everyone in the hall looked at one another desperately, but there was nothing to be done. When no one came to her rescue, Red ran after Froggy, but she tripped on her dress and fell to the floor. Charlie, wait, come back, she pleaded. Please come back. Red crawled down the aisle as she cried for him, but Froggy never looked back. He and Marina reached the door and disappeared into a puff of dark smoke. Red lay on the floor and sobbed hysterically. Goldilocks ran to her and kneeled beside her. Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, and Granny joined Goldilocks on the floor, but Red was beyond comforting. The Charming brothers stood over their wives. We'll find him, Red, Chase said. We won't let this witch take our brother from us again, Chandler said. But she didn't take him this time, Red cried. He left me. He left me at our wedding. Red was so devastated she had become delirious. Is this a dream, Goldie? Please tell me this is a dream. Goldilocks had no words to comfort her. Red rested her head on Goldilocks' lap and sobbed herself to sleep. With nothing left to see and no way to help, the Fairy Council disappeared one at a time. The other guests took their lead and filed out of the Hall of Progress. What happened to Butterboy? Trollbella said as she walked out with the others. Jack looked around the hall, but there was still no sign of him. Yeah, I'm going to go find Connor, he said to Goldilocks. Something must have happened to him. He left the Hall of Progress as fast as he could. The eager crowds outside weren't aware of what had occurred, and they cheered every time someone walked out, expecting their newly married king and queen to emerge at any moment. Jack squeezed through the villagers and retraced what he assumed would have been Connor's path to retrieve the rings. He made it all the way back to the castle with no sign of him. However, as soon as Jack stepped into the library, he discovered his instincts were right. All the furniture had been knocked over, and the paintings were crooked. The windows were shattered, and most of the shelves were broken. The floor was covered in books and glass. Connor! Jack yelled. He heard grunting and found Connor curled up in the corner. He had a black eye and a busted lip. He was clutching his stomach. Jack gently lifted up to a seated position. Connor, what the hell happened? Jack asked. Who did this to you? He was still shaken up and he had a hard time speaking. He was here, he said. Who was? Jack asked. The masked man, Connor said. When I came back for the rings, he was in the library. He was stealing books. I tried to hold him down, but he fought me off. Connor raised his arms and showed Jack a sack he was clutching tightly in his fists. He had managed to grab a hold of the masked man's mask. I saw his face, Connor said. Alex was right all along. He is our dad.
Oh shit!
So sad. It's all so sad. This is not good, you guys. It's a bad chapter. All right, well, we are left in a moment of true horror. Yeah, seriously. All right, well, I'm gonna go. It was a wild chapter. I'm gonna go eat breakfast and pack orders so we can take them to the post office, but that was a wild ride. That's really funny, Becca. Yeah, that was really, I know, right, Shelly? I know. All right, well, have a good day, you guys. Wild. Wild, wild, wild.
Rocky!
I know. So sad. Bye, guys.